Good afternoon. I'm Sally Campbell-Evans, the pastor for Congregational Care at Hyde Park United Methodist. And this is my friend, Dr. Erica Clark. She's a church member and a psychologist. And today we're going to talk about how to manage the after effects of a disaster or traumatic event. Erica, thank you so much for being with us today. Well, you know, Hurricane Irma is on everybody's mind, but it's really kind of one of a string of disasters we are hearing about or bracing ourselves for with other hurricanes or earthquakes or wildfires out west. So a lot of folks still are having a little anxiety, a good bit of anxiety. They're feeling overwhelmed. Some feel sad. Some feel a little bit of survivor's guilt. Can you just share with us what is a normal reaction to the aftermath that we've all lived through?
Absolutely, and normal is a really difficult word because it's going to run the full gamut, and one person's experience might be very different than another person's experience, even if they were in the same place when they went through a disaster or a traumatic event. So the idea that there might be a wide range of emotions is so true in this case. So like you mentioned, there can be feelings of sadness, grief, but on the opposite side of that, there might be some feelings of relief. So people who felt like they dodged a bullet, so to speak, where they thought they were going to be hit harder by some of these traumatic experiences or disasters, and others ended up having a worse experience, that they might feel some guilt and might feel some relief, and all those mixed emotions are very difficult to kind of balance. One of the most important things to do in a situation like this when it comes to our emotional experiences is to not place any shoulds on yourself. So this idea of a should is I should feel this way or I shouldn't feel this way. What happens when we put those shoulds on ourselves is we end up with feelings of guilt and shame on top of some already difficult emotions. So by letting go of those shoulds, we're able to better facilitate the process of dealing with the emotions as they are and being able to experience them and recognize there's no normal, so to speak, but being able to say, okay, today this is how I feel and here's what I need to do to manage that emotion. And that helps you to process through and really facilitates healing.
Okay. I have heard people say they are continuing to remember the events of the day or that week, frankly. They're having flashbacks. Is that normal?
There's, again, this kind of wide range of normal, but it absolutely can happen that people can begin remembering different parts that maybe they hadn't remembered, or they're hyper-focused on certain aspects of their emotional experience or what they went through in the days leading up to or during a traumatic event. What happens in that case is that memory is just so strongly tied to some really, really significant emotions is that it keeps popping into our awareness even when we don't want it to. It's really helpful in situations like that to find some support. So to be able to talk with family members or someone in your support network who can help you work through that and kind of process the different thoughts that you're having so they're not always begging for your attention. And that way you can kind of work through them. In addition to that, it's so important to try to maintain as much as you can your regular routine. So making sure you're getting enough sleep, making sure you're getting that rest, making sure you're getting sufficient nutrition, making sure that you're doing the tasks of daily life that can kind of reintroduce you to what's normal at this point. So even if it doesn't feel normal and you don't exactly feel there, just getting up, going to work, taking care of family members if that's part of your routine, and making sure you're also taking care of yourself at the same time.
All right, that's helpful. Well, I do know that we have a lot of clergy. In Tampa, we have a lot of clergy in the Florida Connection. And a lot of those clergy are by nature caregivers. So not only are they taking care of themselves, but they're taking care of their families and their congregations. And now many of them are reaching far beyond their congregation to their community. Absolutely. What can they do to take care of themselves? That
is so, so important, and especially in an event like this where it impacts entire communities and entire states and essentially big portions of the country. Everyone was kind of in it together, but everyone's going to have their own reaction. And there are some people who are the caregivers, whether it be within a family, whether it be within a church, and they not only have to take care of other people's reactions and help support them, but absolutely they have to take care of themselves.
Right.
And it comes down to self-care and making sure that you're prioritizing your own needs in addition to those around you. And the analogy that I tend to use that really speaks to self-care is this idea of wearing an oxygen mask. So when you're on an airplane, they say, when the oxygen mask comes down, put yours on before you help anyone else. The reason being, if I don't put mine on, I'm not going to be helped to many people at all. But if I can take care of myself and make sure I'm okay, I'm going to be much better able to help those around me. So it becomes, as opposed to a selfish thing, which people often feel that self-care is selfish in nature, it's not at all. It's very selfless because I need to make sure I'm okay in order to take care of others. So making sure not only the physical needs are met, like making sure eating and sleeping and physical activity and things like that are a big part of the day-to-day, but also the other part, the finding joy part. To, when you're in the midst of so much difficult emotion, you have to be able to find joy somewhere, to find moments of rest, to find moments of peace, to find moments of gratitude, even for the smallest things, to be able to find some kind of joy. So for some people, that's that they need alone time and need to carve out some of that time, and that's their oxygen mask. For others, it's that they need family, friends, and that caregiver might need their own caregiving at times. They might need someone else who can support them versus feeling like they're the one who's constantly supporting others. Along with that, there's a fine line, and this goes to everyone, that sometimes when we feel we need that alone time, it can get too much. So it's a fine line. We want to make sure that we're not isolating ourselves. But if it's just, okay, I need this hour or two this afternoon to just have some decompression time, but to make sure that I am socializing, make sure that I am getting that social support, because we're social beings and we need to find that balance.
Absolutely. So if I hear you correctly, then I'm hearing that we need to take care of ourselves first. I know it's so easy when you're in the midst of a disaster. We lived through Hurricane Andrew, and there were so many of our friends that just burned out, and it was a long time to heal.
Absolutely.
And so we need to rest and exercise. We need to have fun. We need to play. We need to do those things that bring us joy. Well, how would you, when I think about having fun and play, that could be vegging out on a movie series, or it could be reading a book, or what do you mean by fun and play?
Anything that brings you some type of joy, and I think joy is such a perfect word here. Something that brings enjoyment, something that brings feelings of gratitude, fulfillment, anything that fills you up. Because again, when you're trying to give a lot to others, you need to make sure you're refilling you. So a lot of times what happens is when people are in a real significantly negative emotional space, things don't seem like they'll be as much fun as they used to be. So it might be that you had a hobby or something that used to bring you joy, and you're thinking, well, that's not going to be that enjoyable. I say do it anyways. Because a lot of times our brain catches up once our body starts physically engaging in that activity. So being able to kind of put yourself out there, do those things, even if it feels a little bit like you're going through the motions at first, and typically the joy will follow.
It's been days since the hurricane hit, but people are still a little off. Can you share any things that would make this hurricane unique?
So a couple of things that are really unique to this storm that I've seen both personally and professionally, and people that I've spoken with, is that there's this level that which people even a few weeks after are just feeling off. They're just feeling like they're having a hard time getting back to the normal routine. And I've heard people say, my home wasn't affected that significantly, and I'm safe, and I'm so glad to be safe. But I just feel off. I'm having a hard time getting back to the swing of things. And there's a couple factors that play into that that are really unique to Hurricane Irma. One is that the preparation for this storm was very long. So there was at least a week that we were expecting it to be coming to our area and dealing with the preparation piece and all of that. That with that level of anticipation, there comes to be this process in the body where you jump into fight or flight mode. So your nervous system says, okay, there's a threat, I need to do something about this, which is a great thing to have. It's a great physical thing that we need our body to do in order to stay safe, but it's not meant to do it for such a prolonged period of time. So this idea that it was at least a week, and even more for some people, of this significant anticipation, our body is flying at this high level of alertness where all of our systems are just on high alert and in go mode. So in addition to that, the kind of second factor that plays in is this idea that there was so much uncertainty about where the storm was going to go, where it was going to hit. Was it going to hit the East Coast, the West Coast, go straight up the middle of the state, where it was going to go. So in addition to this anticipatory anxiety, we had a ton of uncertainty. So again, there might be some feelings of relief that comes in when you're thinking it's not coming here, and then, oh wait, it's coming back. So we had high level of anxiety and high level of uncertainty. So what happens with that fight or flight mode being engaged for so long is burnout happens. And it's this idea of adrenal fatigue. Our adrenal glands can't keep up So we hit this kind of rock bottom point and we need to refill. So it really speaks to this idea of rest, of self-care, of filling back up, whether it be with the very physical things that we need, sleep, eating, physical activity, and then also the emotional things we need, that support from family and friends, finding joy, finding gratitude and things like that, to be able to restore ourselves to a place where that stress is no longer impacting us as significantly.
You know, a lot of our church members are asking to speak to a pastor, and that is a wonderful thing because they're needing just to have someone listen to their story, where they were, what happened to them, and what they're doing, what they're having to face now. And I hope everybody will feel like they have access to their clergy person or a clergy person. But how do we recognize those signs when we need a professional's help?
Yeah, and that's a very important factor to kind of think about in this situation, because there are so many people that are going to be impacted by this storm, whether they be here or if they're afar and have watched it and had loved ones who have gone through these experiences. So being able to recognize what's kind of within the realm of typical experiences versus what kind of falls outside and might need some additional support. So a couple main things to look for is if there's this persistent distress, persistent feelings of distress and feelings of hopelessness, having a difficulty kind of finding any hope in the situation, finding any hope for the future. Another big factor that plays into it is if someone's having difficulty maintaining just their regular daily activities.
Okay.
It's one thing if they need to take a day or two for self-care, but if long-term they're having difficulty getting their needs met, getting the needs of their family met, going to their job and doing what they typically do in their day-to-day, if that's become very difficult, that's a sign that some additional support would likely be very, very helpful.
Okay, that's very helpful to me to hear, and hopefully anybody that hears this video. But thank you very much. And friends, those who are listening, we just hope that if you feel the need to reach out, that you will take care about yourself enough to reach out and get some help. This is a trying time. We have all lived through this together, and we're still living through it together. We've got a long way to go on the road to recovery, and we're in it together. So may God bless us all. Thank you. Thank you.